This is the third and final part of my interview with actor, writer, director Michael Garland. In this part of the interview, we talk about the difference between the pantomime dame and the role of the ugly sister from Cinderella, and we also talk about the role of the pantomime villain.
Oh, as you speak, I think the first of my dame costumes has just arrived.
Wow!
Yeah, it's in a very small box, which is a bit worrying.
So, ugly sister.
Ugly sister, yes. Ugly sister. Heel. Ugly sisters have heel.
Right.
Dames tend not to, although I wear them, which is really annoying for people. Traditionally, they don't like that. But ugly sisters really have heel. And the more heels you wear, the better.
Right. I was reading Paul Harris of the who wrote the Pantomime book. He was saying that the ugly sisters wear heels and dames should wear flats.
Yes, he's absolutely right. I do tend to wear heels as dame.
Right.
But not as high as ugly sister. He's absolutely right on that. It's a basic canon. They don't wear flats. They wear boots in actual fact. But ugly sisters wear high heel shoes.
Right. Ugly sisters wear high heels shoes. So you could feasibly then perform dame wearing Dr. Martens?
Oh yes, a lot of them do.
Right.
I like a heel because it makes you walk differently.
Right,
There's
of course.
Stagger in a heel. If you're wearing a heel, you walk differently than if you walk flats. And that gives you a slightly female edge. Does that make sense? So I always like, even if it's not a high heel, about a 2-inch heel, in dame, gives you that stagger. It gives you that strange walk, particularly if you're elderly and you can't quite manage it.
Yes.
And you do that strange stagger. And you walk across the stage with that strange walk, which in boots you won't do.
Right.
And so if you're bearing down on some poor bastard in the audience and you're in heels, it's a different move than if you're in flats. Yes. And it's also wigs are slightly different for I mean, the problem is, of course, that technically it's extremely demanding to ask your artists to have different shoes, different costumes for dame, for ugly sister, if you're expecting them to play both. And particularly since there is a strange tradition that dames, ugly sisters provide their own costumes. Why would they do this? They expect it. If you're playing Abanazer, you don't. Although I do now because I'm so used to it. But most people, but if you play dame or if you play, you're expected to provide your own costume. You're not actually paid that much more.
Yeah.
So suddenly you're expected to pay, for this extra water. So why would you suddenly say that if you're playing sister, it's one set of costumes, and if you're playing dame, it's another? But they do have to be subtly altered because there's a different feel.
Yes.
So, sisters are wannabe fashion models.
I see.
Sisters are wannabe. They all want to be. Sisters want to be Paris Hilton.
Right.
Dames are all want to be. Dames are all slightly glamorous versions of I don't know, but they're mothers, which sisters aren't. And there's a difference there. So
would you say that this just pops into my head that an ugly sister then is very similar to what Joanna Lumley was doing as Patsy in Ab Fab?
Yes, that's an ugly sister. That's exactly right. In fact, her and Patsy together were ugly sisters. They were perfect ugly sisters.
Yes.
Perfect ugly sisters. Absolutely right. I mean, the trick I always used to play as ugly sister, which was always a good fun trick to play, remembering after all that I play Abanazer.
Yes.
Is the fact that I would never use the voice, the full voice, until I got to the words tear it up.
Yeah.
And when we did the ticket tearing, I would do it twice as ugly sister. Tear it up. tear it out, and suddenly it goes, "Ah! Ah!" and laughed it for hours, and it was really great.
Wow.
Would you like? And then I always used to get the other sisters to look at me and go, "Would you like a fisherman's friend?" Yeah, because that's fabulous, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just, and you use the full voice, and the whole theatre just goes shit.
Right. And you've got quite you said you weren't quite a good singer, but I remember you having like a certain amount of operatic range, right?
Oh yeah. I was an opera singer for a while.
Right, there you go. So you've got that range to go through for that.
Yeah. And so you make this enormous noise. It's all head resonance, after all.
Yes.
And you hit the head of the top resonance in the head tones, and you really hit that in. And of course, what you've got to remember is that you're making these noises, and you must be able to make them 2 shows a day, 6 weeks.
Right, yes.
Right? So whatever noise you choose to make has to be sustainable. I mean, that's the basic thing you do. You do it in rehearsals, and you have to work out within your own framework whether this is consistent, whether you can make this noise all the time.
Right.
And that's one of the things where non-pros, or this is a dreadful thing to say, not non-pros, should we say lesser pros, get stuck on, because they will make something that sounds fabulous in rehearsals, and then they do 4 shows in, and it's gone, of course.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. You know, and it never comes back. You know, and I did a song last year, and I hit a top G in it, and I was speaking to the MD about it, and I said, "Well, what do you think?" I said, "Is this feasible?" He said, "It sounds very much in your range." He said, "You don't seem to be scraping it." But he said, "I will work out a voice workout for you." And very sweetly, he worked out our voice workout for me.
Yeah.
And he and I did it every show before both 2 shows.
Mm-hmm.
So that he swore, he said, "You will hit that note." And I did. And every show, you know, come when I got to that number, top G, bang in.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
And he said, "No, it's great," he said. "And you're doing all the shouting and you're screaming." Because, of course, it was combined with the Abanazer. So you're shouting and screaming, and I'm going to rule the world, and you're all going to die, and, you know, you don't do this, you know, sotto voce. So when we actually put it all together, and I said, "Do you think we're going to be able to do that number? Because it's a bit odd going up quite that high." He said, no, if we do this and this. And he taught me these exercises, and they were very good. I like them or not. And it was fabulous. And he was a very good MD. But alas, I don't know who we have this year.
Right.
And he's not MDing anymore. He's gone back, because he was a singer. And he just took a year off the singer to be an MD.
Mm.
And he was a superb MD. Oh, God, he was good. And one of the things I loved about him was the fact that I did 3 front clocks in Aladdin last year, and they were completely improvised. We had no script for them.
Wow.
And I guess he should drift, basically. And they were more or less the same. I mean, I'm not saying that after 7 performances they didn't follow a very set pattern.
Yeah.
But they would shift depending upon how the audience were behaving. You know? And he is just playing underneath.
And this is villain you're playing now?
I was playing villain last year.
Right.
And, you know, depending on the audience and depending upon, you know, I would suddenly get in the interval the front house would say, "Can you work them up a bit?" And I'd say, "Okay." You know, and, "Oh no, can you not work them up a bit? You need to get out quick." Okay.
Right.
You know, so I had 3 front clocks, and they were entirely dependent upon how I played the audience. So that if I thought the audience weren't going for it, I just used to zoom it through.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, they'd go, yes, they're boring, let's get on with it. But if the audience were up for it, we really used to work them.
Right.
And I could add or take 5 minutes off. And I was allowed to do this. They said, yes, you have permission to do this.
Yeah.
And I had this lovely line. I look, ladies and gentlemen, upon your sea of ghastly faces. And I think to myself, well, what's to like? It was all that nonsense,
Mm-hmm.
And I just used to insult them and see how far they went. Really. And they just, if I got it working, they would scream. I would have them screaming.
Yeah. And so you essentially then, when you've done panto for a number of years now, so you pretty much alternate between dame and villain, right?
I alternate between dame, except this year when I'm playing emperor, which is very interesting.
That's right. And then I saw you a number of years ago now. I saw you playing Merlin in
You saw me playing Merlin when I was being kind of nice.
Yes, that's right. So occasionally you do other things, but it's mostly dame and villain.
Yeah, but you notice with Merlin had the gravity. You could have told that Merlin could have turned at any moment.
Right.
There was the thing about Merlin was he was very pleasant in a kind of avuncular kind of way, but you wouldn't want to upset him.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
I do, yeah.
He was not, shall we say, there were certainly hints to Merlin that if you pissed him off, things would not go your way.
Right.
Which was great fun to play, of course.
Yeah.
And the lovely thing about Merlin, because you saw it at Leamington, presumably.
Yes.
Was the fact that there was a big speech I did. A massive speech. And it wasn't in the script, wasn't there. And the producer and the technical director said, okay, Michael, speech. And I went, about what? He said, bollocks if I know, 3.5 minutes, time for scene change. And I went, is that all I've got? And they went, yeah. And I went, okay, that's what we do. I said, are you going to tell me when I get to the right point? So we did it a couple of times in the technical, and I had a guy waving at me. And I wrote a basic speech out, and then they waved at me. And then by the time we got to the dress rehearsal, I realised when the wave was going to happen. But I had inset lines inserted. So if the scene change didn't work, or if they got stuck, I could insert lines in.
Right.
So the speech was variable, depending on how the scene change went.
And what was it about?
It was bollocks. It's absolute nonsense. I feel Morgana's tentacles encroaching around the palace, and magic grows even stronger.
Yes.
Soon, if I am not careful, if I do not stop it, she will destroy us all. It was all that kind of crap.
I remember now, yeah.
I'm pretty sure it was that.
Right.
It's absolute rubbish. I made it up I literally made it up on stage in the dress rehearsal.
Mm-hmm.
Because, it was supposed to be an immediate scene change. It didn't work.
Right.
They couldn't make it work. So I said, I'll talk a load of gollops then. Now, what was so funny was Harry Dickman used to come on stage, because I used to get around for that speech every night.
Wow.
And Harry went, what the fuck are you doing? He said, and he come on stage, he said, it's rubbish. I went, of course it's rubbish, Harry. He went, what are you doing then? I said, it's beautifully spoken rubbish. He said, yes. He said, it's very alarming how well spoken it is. He said, it does sound like you're auditioning for the RSC. It was my big Shakespearean speech.
Right.
It was absolute bollocks.
Right.
And I do remember, I would go, soon the world of darkness will encroach us all. Oh, I feel it, the tentacle, all that nonsense.
Yeah.
And I just used to make it up. And Harry used to find it hysterical. And I'd always get around at the end of it.
Nice.
And because it was, what was it? I don't know. It was a load of crap, really.
Mm-hmm.
It was the two things I had to make sure was they could do the scene change and the girl had done the costume change.
Right.
Once I knew that was done, I could wrap it up.
Yeah.
And so wherever I was in the speech, but wait, I would always say, wherever I was, as soon as I got a hand signal, I go, but wait. They are now approaching. The evening commences. All the dancers are in place for tonight's celebration. It was complete shite. It was bad. Harry just said it was so funny to watch. He said because you would create this nonsensical thing, you always finish it absolutely differently. You always got around on it. And you never finish it at the same place because you always finish it when you got the hand signal.
Yes.
So he said you sometimes break off in this sentence. he said I've never heard a load of rubbish get around like that before. But that was because there was no filler for that.
Yeah. Right.
And it was done we decided to do it to the Hedwig theme from Harry Potter. Da 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 da.
Oh yes. Yeah.
I remember that. And we just said, we'll put the Hedwig theme underneath it. It'll make it sound fabulous. And it doesn't really matter what I'm saying then, because I think it's meaningful. And we'll just talk rubbish until the scene change happens.
Yeah.
All it was a filling. That's what all it was for. It was just because they couldn't do the scene change in time.
Yeah.
I just remember it was terribly funny. And I used to get around for that every night.
Wow.
And Harry used to come up and listen and go, "What the fuck are you doing?" And I went, "No idea."
So you write and direct pantos as well, right? And have you basically been doing that for the same amount of time you've been doing them?
No. I started writing them. Hang on, when did I start writing them? When I started working for Mark, so I was doing other people's pantos, but what started to happen was I would write bits in. For example, I would do pantos and then I would write bits in because it didn't work, or I couldn't make it make sense, or the dialogue was dreadful, or whatever. And I would just go, "Do you mind if I write my bit?"
Right.
And then I'd write other people's bits, and then I'd write other people's bits. And then there was one show, I think, when I wrote nearly a third of it, and I was only chorus, which was a third. And then I did 2 shows for a company at Bury and Harrogate, and I sort of rewrote that very slightly.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a very good writer that wrote it, and he had told me what his inspiration was, and so I stuck to that. You see, what I used to do was I would not destroy what somebody else had done. I would simply look at what they'd done and go, "But we can do this better."
Okay.
If you see what I mean.
I do.
So he'd written this whole rhyming couplet stuff from Robert Browning's A Pipe Over of Hamlet. And I went, "Oh, this is very good. I like this. Let's zoop this up a bit and turn it into Richard III." So we kept the rhyming couplets, but I'm making that into Richard III. And so his rhyming couplets were infinitely more camp than anybody else's, you know.
Yeah.
And I rewrote the whole of King Rat and a few other people's things. And Terry came to see it and went, "Oh God, I wish I thought of that. That was really funny."
This is Dick Whittington, right?
This was Dick Whittington.
And
and then I worked with Mark and I rewrote all my King Rat stuff for Mark because I hated it. And I said, "I'm just going to change it, Mark. It's not going to affect you that much." I never used to, initially, I would never write other people's lines. So I'd only write my own. So I would make sure that all my lines fitted in the cues and everything.
Yes.
And then I did it for Charles Dance and I did it for somebody else. And then suddenly I was directing for Mark. And then I just would take a script and go, "Yeah, well, this is a load of shit. Let's start again and write it again."
Right.
So I did 10 productions for Mark, and I basically rewrote the pantos.
Mm-hmm.
We had a writer. We had a very good writer. I liked him enormously, called Steve. And I would always only work from his scripts because actually he got a lot of things genuinely right. The only thing that he did was the fact that he wasn't always funny, but his shaping was beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
So I would always keep to his shaping and keep to his, and then just go, no, we can change this, we can change that. Why has he done that? That's really weird. There was a sequence once when he took a scene out of rhyme couplets and put it into prose. And I went, no, we can keep it into rhyme couplets. It's funny that way. So I rewrote it into rhyme couplets. Because rhyme couplets are funny if they're done right.
Yeah.
And we kept it in rhyme couplets, and the rhymes were all ridiculous. And all that stuff. And I just started. So I directed 10 shows and ended up more or less writing them.
Yeah. Traditions. How important is it, do you think, to keep the panto tradition, song sheet, ghost scene, slop scene, that sort of thing?
Absolutely.
Yeah?
I mean, you don't have to have all of them in every show every time, but you have to have some of them in all the time.
Right, and the villain has to enter from the left, is that right?
Yeah, there's a whole routine. The villain enters in from stage left, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
Villain enters in from stage right, fairy enters in from stage right. Is that right, or is it the other way around? If you're facing the audience, the fairy enters in from the right-hand side, the villain enters in from the left-hand side. Yeah.
Right. As that goes back to what, Victorian era melodramas?
I think it goes back actually to, I think it goes back earlier than that. I think it goes back to mystery plays. A lot of pantomime comes from mystery plays.
Right, and there's a commedia dell'arte element there too, right?
Oh, yeah, hugely. Well, it started from commedia dell'arte, Harlequinona, and all that stuff, which gradually got eradicated. The whole Italian element of it was eradicated and fundamentally disappeared more or less by the 1890s, and it was just got rid of.
Right.
I mean, you see it much, but not very rarely. The comedian and stuff, because that was silent. So if you talk about people in Europe about pantomime, they assume it's silent.
Yes, they some over here have as well.
And it's not. It's of course pantomime is not. And it's pantomime and pantomime, and they're two different things.
That's right.
Which is why, quite rightly, most people just call it panto, and then it's self-explanatory, really.
Right.
It's a very old tradition, and traditions are some of them are, a little silly, and some of them we have, it started to ignore, it does shift. It shifts very slowly. We're starting to lose the principal boy now.
Oh, really? Why is that?
To do some female, lady of 52 claiming to be Robin Hood in tights.
Right.
It's just, unless you get a really good one. I worked with a lady called Nicola Harris a couple of years ago, and she was superb. And she worked absolutely brilliantly. The girl I'm working with this year will be brilliant. But most principal boys don't have it. It's a trick, and it's gone from a lot of people. Whereas, stick in any decent pop star and then you can more or less get away with it.
Right.
Male pop star.
Right.
I've worked with 3 very good male Aladdins and a very good male Robin Hood,
Yes.
And there's no doubt that and also they are easier. Now, there's something very odd about panto, which is fundamentally it's a male environment. I don't know why it is, but it is, and women are not happy in it. Every show you do, you will get, the maid marrying all the fairies, and they'll sit in their dressing room and they'll know. I don't know what it is. It's endemic. There's nothing you can do about it. Nothing you can actually. It's very difficult to pull out and rethread. but they don't enjoy it as much as the boys do.
I guess it's because...
they don't have as much to do.
Right. The villain is always a male, and that's a great part. The dame is the male, that's another great part. Comic is the male, that's another great part. And then and then there's everything else.
And then there's everything else. I think occasionally, if you're lucky, you get a female witch, or you get a female queen of the night, or whoever you get, and they're fantastic. But oddly, I've worked with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 female villainesses, and only 2 of those really enjoyed it.
Mm.
Because they went, I don't like being hated, and all this stuff, and they get all 4, and you just go, okay, I haven't said, I'll get over it. Just make sure you go on stage and they hate the hell out of you. That's the point.
Yeah.
What do you mean I don't like being booed at? What does that mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's bizarre. That's the point. When I play Abanazer, of course I'm going to be booed at. That's the fun of it.
Right.
So it is very strange. I somehow feel, and I could be horribly wrong, I'm always going to be shouted out for this, I somehow think the panto is not necessarily a female environment. And I think this has got to do with the fact that theatre, per se, did not exist for women until 1600.
Yeah, that's right, until the Restoration.
And therefore there's a whole aspect of it that is simply not female friendly.
Although panto, as it is now, evolved after that, though, right?
Yeah, but it comes from the dame is entirely a medieval figure.
Right, and there's some suggestion that the nurse in Romeo and Juliet could have been a dame.
Yes, the nurse was a dame. That's absolutely true. And this all comes from mystery plays.
Yeah.
Mrs. Noah, all those parts were played by dames.
Right.
The only person who was allowed to be female in the mystery plays was the Virgin Mary.
Right.
All the other women were played by men.
Right, got it.
So there was this huge tradition in English drama, particularly, I'm not so sure about European, but certainly in English drama, where no female, other than the Virgin Mary, was ever seen on stage. So everybody was a dame to a degree.
Yes.
The nurse was a dame, but Juliet was a bloke. Yeah. But of course the nurse would have been, and that was the thing, that the ex-Juliets, as it were, became the nurse.
Oh, wow. Wow. Didn't know that.
Well, of course they did.
Yeah.
Because they'd done Juliet, they'd done whoever they'd done. They probably weren't that great at playing men, but they were still kept on with the company. So they played Lady Capulet, or they played the nurse, or they played the Duchess, or whatever it was, and they played all those older parts.
Got it.
You see, and they would have been the great age of about 22.
That's right.
Because the voices broke,
Yeah.
So, yeah. Unless, of course, they went for a truly older actor.
Right.
But none of that. I mean, that lovely thing of Jim Broadbent doing the nurse in Shakespeare in Love. But yes, I think that's absolutely right.
Mm.
And so this whole concept of the dame was already endemic within British culture before the panto started.
Right, got it.
So it was already there.
Yeah.
And so that's why when we get people saying, dames should be played by women now, people get so hot in the collar about it, because it's something that's gone back for over 1,000 years.
Yeah.
So, and you go, And also, female dames, I don't know if you've seen any, they don't work.
Interesting.
They really don't work.
Why do you think that is?
The dialogue is wrong. The dialogue, the only female dame who I think would ever work would have been Phyllis Diller.
Yes, got it. Okay.
The only one I think would have worked. Possibly Elaine Church.
Mm-hmm.
Because you need that woof. And they could have delivered the dialogue that Danes get without it sounding appalling.
Right.
But most of the Danes dialogue is appalling.
Yes.
I mean, I'm wandering in my show and go, oh Lordy, dinner time already, not a sausage prick.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can't give that to a woman.
Why?
Because it sounds vile.
Mm.
With a bloke, it sounds, particularly if in an outrageous frock with a big hat on.
Yeah, interesting.
It's very odd, It doesn't work. If you see a lot of young Abanazers or young villains coming up now, they're all ex-dancers. They're all very physically fabulous. They are vocally inept. And the vocals are boring.
Mm.
Whereas actually the vocals are what make it funny.
Right.
The lines are hysterical. And so if you get the right lines, you get the laughs. And it's to do with how you place them. The whole thing is the fact that fundamentally Abanazer is Richard III on acid.
That's right. I also wanted to ask you, Michael, where do you stand on creating a new panto? What I mean by that is, instead of the traditional fairy tales that we all know, like the Beauty and the Beast, for example, or Cinderella's, and is there room, do you think, to create something new, like a new fairy tale or a new story?
I don't see why not. I mean, as long as people are prepared to allow us to do the old ones.
What do you mean by that?
As long as theatres say, yes, let's do the Jacks and all that stuff. If they also want to do the others, I can't see a problem with that. The problem only results is when people say, no, we're fed up with the Aladdin, we're only going to do the new ones.
Right. So you think a healthy mix of the old traditional and new works?
Yes, I think that would be an excellent idea. I can't see what would be wrong with that at all. Why would it?
Right.
Because, again, one feeds the other. But what you don't want to do is to kill off one to feed the other.
Right.
And there's no reason. Certain theatres will do one kind. Alternative theatres will be much more interested in doing the new ones.
Yes.
I mean, if you've got a town that's got a big theatre and it's doing Jack and the Beanstalk, and you've got another theatre, it doesn't want to be doing Jack and the Beanstalk.
Correct, yeah.
So if it's doing Dracula, the Disco Panto, for example,
yeah,
as long as it's done well, and as long as it understands what it's doing, as long as it gets what it's doing right, the problem you have is when it starts bending the rules so far that it stops being a panto.
Right. Okay.
So you see what I mean?
Yeah. So you've got to keep what we were talking about with the song sheet and all those, slop scene. You've got to keep elements of that.
For example, they did a panto around the corner, and they had a female dame. It didn't work.
Mm.
A female dame does not work. You need a male dame, and also you need to get. There's also the thing of putting things in the right place, not just having them there, but in the right position.
Yes.
Ghost Gag always goes in that too. Song sheet always goes in that too. You do not put a song sheet in that one.
Right.
If you get that shape right, you can be talking about, I don't know, Shrek or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
As long as those things are in the right place, the panto will work.
Mm-hmm.
Oddly, I have no idea why.
And another thing I wanted to ask you, I came across, I was looking at some theatres that were doing panto, and I came across one that was just at Easter.
Oh, yeah, they do all the year-round pantos now.
Oh, they do?
Yeah.
That's very odd, isn't it? They must take out all their Christmas references. It's kind of a...
well, if you read like it, of course you do.
Yeah.
Yes, I've done summer pantos. We used to do summer pantos for holiday camps.
Wow. I mean, would so you would do the same stories, like the Cinderella and
stories are the same. Stories are the same. You just take out the Christmas references. Yeah.
Wow. And is that essentially what? It's very similar to summer season, right?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
So, for example, if I do a holiday camp, which I haven't done for a while, they would do a panto in the afternoon and then a magic show, some kind of show at night.
Oh wow! Okay.
And we would do both shows and then move on to the next holiday camp. Summer season, when you're in a permanent venue, almost certainly it would not be a summer panto. They would do a variety show with whoever, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whoever it's going to be.
Yeah.
Almost certainly Anita Harris, probably.
Okay. That's interesting.
You know, and they would scrape their way through that show, and then that would be it.
And so do the pantos year-round work then? Do they still bring it? Because the idea, you know, my understanding is the idea of doing a panto at Christmas, you bring all the bums on seats, theatre makes a whole bunch of money, and that sort of lasts, and the actors last the actors.
But the theatres do pantos at Christmas will not do pantos the rest of the year round.
Right. Okay.
So the pantos of the rest of the year round are usually in holiday camps.
I see.
Summer pantos and invariably Butlins,
mm-hmm.
Haven, whatever. Couple of theatres will do summer pantos, and a couple of theatres, usually the end of pier pantos. The pier at Blackpool, the pier at Cromer, will do Easter pantos.
Oh wow! Okay.
They do that, but that's it really.
Mm.
And that's for 2 weeks. I know I have a friend of mine who does. He plays Dane in the Blackpool pantos for Easter and summer.
Wow!
And then he comes and does Ban Hard Up for the big panto, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
They're usually not as grand. They're not as big. They're not as grand. They're not as expensive. They're not as lush.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they don't have the star power.
Right.
So in an Easter panto or in a summer panto, you're not liable to see Vince Hill or whoever it is.
Got it.
You know, some star from 42,000 years previously was now about a star. I actually did a panto with a man called Edmund Hockridge, who was a great star of the 50s. And this is 1977. And I swear that he used to climb into his coffin at the end of it. You know, he was so old. It was quite embarrassing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that seems that's odd, really. You have all this to look forward to when you formulate it in Chicago.
Right.
I'm waiting to be summoned in Dane with my frou-frou outfits and my
I'm not sure if we could afford you, Michael.
I don't think you could, actually. I'd probably get sent back again for saying something rude and unmentionable.
Could you tell me a little bit more about year-round pantomimes and summer seasons, please?
So, for example, if I do a holiday camp, which I haven't done for a while, they would do a panto in the afternoon and then a magic show, some kind of show at night.
Oh, wow, okay.
And we would do both shows and then move on to the next holiday camp. Summer season, when you're in a permanent venue, almost certainly it would not be a summer panto. They would do a variety show with whoever, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whoever it's going to be.
Yeah.
Almost certainly Anita Harris, probably.
Okay. That's interesting.
You know, and they would scrape their way through that show, and then that would be it.
And so do the pantos year-round work then? Do they still bring it? Because the idea, you know, my understanding is the idea of doing a panto at Christmas, you bring all the bums on seats, theatre makes a whole bunch of money, and that sort of lasts, and the actors last the actors.
But the theatres do pantos at Christmas will not do pantos the rest of the year round.
Right. Okay.
So the pantos of the rest of the year round are usually in holiday camps.
I see.
Summer pantos are invariably Butlins, Avon, whatever. Couple of theatres will do summer pantos. And a couple of theatres, usually the end of pier pantos, the pier at Blackpool, the pier at Cromer, will do Easter pantos.
Oh, wow. Okay.
They do that, but that's it, really. And that's for 2 weeks. I know I have a friend of mine that does, he plays Dane in the Blackpool pantos for Easter and summer.
Wow.
And then he comes and does Down Hard Up for the big panto,
Yeah.
They're usually not as grand, they're not as big, they're not as grand, they're not as expensive, they're not as lush. And they don't have the star power.
Right.
So in an Easter panto or in a summer panto, you're not liable to see Vince Hill or whoever it is.
Got it.
Some star from 42,000 years previously was now about star. I actually did a panto with a man called Edmund Hockridge, who was a great star of the 50s. And this is 1977. And I swear that he used to climb his coffin at the end of it. He was so old. It was quite embarrassing.
Wow. Yeah.
But that seems that's odd, really. You have all this to look forward to when you formulate it in Chicago.
Right.
I'm waiting to be summoned in Dane with my frou-frou outfits and my nipples.
I'm not sure if we could afford you, Michael.
I don't think you could, actually. I'd probably get sent back again for saying something rude and unmentionable.
Well, you've got to get through the flight first.
Yeah. Well, President Trump wouldn't let me, would he? So there we go. So there you are.
Well, anyway, Michael, it's been an utter delight talking to you.
Well, it's always a delight talking to you, Jason.
Thank you.
So we shall see you at some point, or hear from you at some point.
Right. Yeah, we can do this again. We can talk again.
We can talk again.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out when I'm next coming over. It could very well be sooner rather than later.
Right, so shall I book a spot in 2042?
Ha! No, sooner than that, dear boy.
Really?
Yeah. Melissa is... Last year, she was taken on a cruise with her grandmother.
Oh, right.
It was all paid for. And Melissa was like, well, it's once in a lifetime opportunity. So I'd like, oh, well, okay. She went, why didn't you go to the UK? And that's how I came to go to England by myself. And I was like, fine. And then this year she's going, I've got another once in a lifetime opportunity, twice in a lifetime.
How many once in a lifetime opportunities does she get?
Right. So her grandmother's pretty much all but paid for it.
Lovely grandma. We like her.
Yes, this is next year. So then it leaves me to potentially come again on my own.
What about children?
Well, we wouldn't go at the same time. When she goes on the cruise, I'd be looking after the children. And then when I'm in England, she'll be off looking after the children.
So you're not going to put them in the deep freeze?
No. Sadly, no.
No. Okay. I was doing a masterclass the other day, and I was actually teaching. I was thinking of you because we were teaching with Sunlight Streams.
Ah, okay.
And I was doing the bottom stream sequence.
Yes.
And I did think of you.
Did I ever tell you, just quickly before I wrap this up, did I ever tell you that when we first started doing that show, and you and I were working together, and you were sort of giving me some direction and all this sort of stuff, I was thinking, my goodness, we've got two directors here. And then as we went on, I realized I was getting a masterclass from you. Did I ever tell you that?
No.
Yeah, I thought, holy shit, this guy is so experienced. I'm getting a masterclass, so I'm just going to shut my mouth and learn. And that's
very kind. I probably said more than I should have. It's just she's just so dreadful, and she didn't understand comedy. Exactly.
Right, or anything, but
or anything.
Yeah, and that's when I thought to myself, I didn't say anything, but I thought I'm just going to listen to this guy over here, and I'm not going to listen to you. No offense.
The only thing I really regret about that show was I wasn't allowed to do it in the original accent I wanted to do it in.
Which was what?
Do you remember I was originally going to do it Northern?
Oh, okay. Which character? Because you had like 1,000 characters, didn't you?
Well, when it's Peter Quince.
Oh yes.
I wanted to do Peter Quince Northern because I said it's much funnier Northern. And Flip, whatever her name was, wanted me to do it West Country. And I said, well, I will, but you won't get nearly the same amount of laughs on it.
That's probably because the guy who did it before you did West Country.
That's exactly what happened. It's exactly what happened.
Because she just restaged it.
She restaged it, and I said, but it's not as funny. And it's one line. It's simply one paragraph. Because if you do it Northern, it goes, we shall rehearse it tonight outside the city walls. We do not wish to be observed. In West Country, it's not as funny. It's a lovely lie.
Yeah.
We should stage it outside. We do not wish to be observed.
Yeah.
In Northern, it just works beautifully.
Yeah.
And in West Country, I could not make it fit the rhythms. It doesn't fit the rhythms.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. And I tend to agree with Barry Rattle that the original country sound was much more Northern in that time.
Yeah.
Because it fits the rhythms perfectly.
Yeah.
And you get huge comedic value out of it.
Right.
Whereas in West Country, it's much harder to be funny. And I don't know why that is. It just doesn't work.
Interesting. Yeah, and I could have, and you said it before, and I was thinking about this the other day, that I could have swore there were two characters where you crossed yourself, and obviously that's impossible. You know, you left as one character, came back on as another, and you did.
I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
And I almost did.
Yeah, and it was just bizarre how there were two of you, but there couldn't have been.
No, I know exactly where it was, and it was when I came off as Phyllis Straight and came on back as, and it was literally off and straight back on again.
Yeah, yeah.
And we literally just ripped the costume off.
And then you also looked at yourself, I think.
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
And it was just an illusion.
Yeah. A very, very good one.
Yes, I remember that one. And do you remember those terrible girls?
Oh, yeah.
The ones who thought playing male meant scratching your crotch.
Yes. Oh, awful.
And I just went, oh, no, please don't. Just don't. Just stop it.
And I always remember you saying, you know, they were talking about not bonding, and you said, well, we bonded at the pub, and you wouldn't come.
I did. I said, why don't you come and drink with us? You don't have to drink alcohol, just come and talk.
Yeah.
That's all you have to do. Yeah. It's not to do with drinking, it's to do with being a group. You know, I am still, if anybody says, let's do bonding exercises in a rehearsal, I actually go puce. I really do. I can't bear it. People will bond naturally. Don't force them.
Yeah.
And if they can't bond, they shouldn't be in the play.
Right. And I'll remember I did a show for Impact, and we were waiting for everybody to arrive, and the one actor came in, Ian, and it was seconds. And he looked at me and he went, well, that's us bonded then. And I was like, well, yeah, that was that. It was just, it was one of those things, it was instant.
That's exactly what it needs. That's all it needs.
Yeah.
You don't need these ridiculous exercises. It's absolutely nonsense.
Yeah.
I did a routine with the lovely Joe Stanline, who was playing Widow County last year. And it's always a bit tricky when you do these commercial pantos because the rehearsals are too short. They're much too short.
Yeah.
And they're tight. And he's doing this and you're doing that, and he's doing this and you're doing that. And quite often in the first week, you don't meet. Anyway, we had this one scene together, but it was the only scene we had together. And for some reason, the director kept missing it out. And we got to the day before the producers run, and I went, we haven't done this scene. And he went, oh, bollocks, no, we haven't. So we did it. And I said, I just want to put this extra bit in. And he went, okay. And I said, right. And I said, it goes like this. He said, I can't remember what the preview was. It was about my husband. Do you know my brother? I come from my brother, you know. Your brother, yes, my brother. And I said, maybe this bag of gold will convince you. And I used to produce this gold. And the line said, oh, that's nice. And I went, oh, that's terribly weak. And so I said, right, let's do it. Maybe this bag of gold will present the gold, really, yes. And so we used to do gold, really, yes. And it took us about half an hour for us to get that right. Because we went, God, really, no, I say really, you say gold, okay? No, you say gold, I say it, okay. Oh, we had to take about 20 minutes before we finally got it right, and it was 2 lines. And it's gold, really, yes. And it's a lovely trick, because it's just really fast. And he just went, oh, and I remember him disappearing off into the distance in the dress rehearsal going, I'll never remember this. And it's a simple line, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it's funny. Maybe this bag gold convince you. Gold, really, yes. And it just gives you that extra comedic flick to it.
Mm-hmm.
But I just, and Joe and I got on really well eventually, but it was just, we never saw each other in rehearsal.
Yeah.
And we used to sit at opposite ends of the desk. We had a dressing room with 13 of us in it.
Wow.
So we used to sit at opposite ends.
Mm-hmm.
And we had 2 rather camp dancers in the middle. There was me and 3 of us at one side, 3 of us at the other end, and these strange dancers in the middle, and boy dancers, and they were very, very OTT. And of course, very young. They were all about 18, 19.
Mm-hmm.
And tended to be a bit extravagant. And we used to quietly sort of tell them to be quiet. For one occasion.
Yeah.
But they were very sweet, really. But anyway. So, yes, I'm off to Worthing in 4 weeks' time.
4 weeks. Okay.
Yeah.
Sunny Worthing.
Well, it won't be.
No. It never is. I used to go around there when I was a teenager. I used to go to Worthing.
Well, yes. You were in Angmering, weren't you?
Yeah, that's right.
My cousin is in Angmering.
Oh.
West Angmering Lane.
Oh. Not your cousin who used to work for Impact.
That's another cousin.
Ah.
Yeah, the cousin that used to work for Impact now is a teacher at Bridlington High School.
Oh, wow.
And turned up at Bridlington. Well, that was very bizarre. Not only did he turn up with Bridlington with 42 of his relatives, which is slightly worrying, but it turned out that the drummer in our show was his, not only the drummer, but the drummer and half the dancers. He was their, what's the word, parochial officer?
Oh.
What I don't know, whatever it is that children have now. You know, the guiding person, not the teacher, but the one who kind of checked up. Anyway, he was saying, and they went, apparently he went up to him and they went, sir, do you have a mad uncle? And he went, why? He said, is he insane and has fire coming from his hands? He went, oh, you know my Uncle Michael. And they went, yes. And he went, yes, he's very insane. Has he said anybody alike yet? And he went, no. He went, oh, it's early days. I loved him for that. So, of course, they came up to me and they went, Mr. Abanazer? And I went, yes. Are you going to set any of us alight? And I went, oh, it's early days. And they all kind of kept away from me for the rest of the performance. They were very sweet children, actually. They were no trouble at all. They were delightful. I had no problems with them. But they were very funny. I used to walk on stage, and I'd go, good afternoon, and they would go, And I'd look at children and I would stare down and I went, have you behaved today? And they went, yes. And I went, oh, good. Well, that saves me from burning you alive, doesn't it? Move on. So I probably will get into deep trouble for that in years to come, I've no doubt.
Probably. Well,
anyway, I shall let you get on.
Thank you, Michael.
You're very welcome. I shall open my box and see what I've got.
Yes, do. Let me know.
I'm hoping I've got a grey and white Dame dress.
Okay.
Nurse's outfit.
So you're Dame in Babes in the Wood for Shrivenham.
I'm Dame in Babes in the Wood here, and then I'm going Emperor in Worthing.
Got it.
So because they haven't got another Dame apparently.
So you're doing Babes first. That closes.
No. I'll rehearse Babes first, then I'll rehearse Emperor, then I'll play Babes. Because Babes will be January the 10th.
Got it. Wow.
So I do Aladdin in the middle, basically.
What? You're doing Aladdin?
Yeah, because so they're doing Babes. This lot are doing Babes. They rehearse it for God knows how long. So I set this up, then I go off and rehearse Aladdin in Worthing.
Oh, right, yes.
Play Emperor of Baghdad. And do Aladdin until January the 2nd, come back, take Babes back up on January the 3rd, re-rehearse it until January the 10th, and then we perform it.
Got it. Wow.
Yeah.
Tense.
Yeah. So it's all going to be a bit scary because they will have forgotten everything, no doubt. And I will shout, possibly. I'll try not to. I didn't shout at all in the Mummy. I was able to do it.
Congratulations.
Yeah, I was saying that. I either got better or I care less. I can't work out which. Anyway, I should speak to you soon.
Yes, Michael. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Not at all. Okay.
All right.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
This is the end of this interview. If you'd like to hear more interviews, please check out our website, comedyqna.com. That's the word comedy, the letter Q, the letter N, the letter A.com. Thanks very much for listening.